Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Liberation. Today we're going to be talking about capitalism, individualism. Probably we're going to talk about Siberia and exiles, maybe the gulags, all within the context of Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation. Here at Literary Liberation Podcast, we provide Marxist literary criticism, popular book talk reads, and I'm your co-host Mariah, and you can find me at Hungry Rye on all social media platforms.
And I'm your co-host, Kristen. You can find me at TensTBR on all social media platforms.
Yeah. Sorry, if this is the first episode of the new year. We've done some mild rebranding, and we're tinkering with some of what we're doing to make it a little bit more cutesy, I don't know, interesting. So I apologize. I'm going to pre-apologize. It's going to be a little rocky, but we're going to get right into it. This is a very anticipated read for, I guess, review for us. Not my anticipated read, but because the movie is coming out, I've made it my goal to read as many books that are becoming movies or getting an adaptation this year. So this one was the first one on the list because the movie is coming out on the 9th. And today is January 7th. This is getting posted on the 8th. So you're getting this right before the movie is coming out, which is kind of crazy.
Yes, and if you don't know what People We Meet on Vacation is about, you follow two millennials and their growth and relationship of their friendship of over 12 years. And they're two people that have been friends since college, and they go on vacations together every year. But the trick is they're just friends. Just friends. It's a romance novel, so it can only leave so much up to interpretation of what's going to happen. Mariah and I are not very big contemporary romance readers. I know Mariah does read a lot of romance specifically, but not a lot of contemporary romance. And I think if I am reading romance, which I don't very often, it is contemporary romance though.
That's interesting. I don't gravitate towards it. I don't know why. It's fine. Like, there's just, like, it's cute. I think contemporary romance is cute. It just doesn't have a lot of, like...
It doesn't have alien giant schlongs swinging around with...
I do prefer either, like, a monster romance or an alien romance. Give me something weird. I read the dark romance just to, like, see what's going on with the general public and their consensus because it's so popular, but...
Well, this
Emily
is definitely
Henry
more...
is, like...
general populace, I would say.
Yeah, I think you could find this book at, like, Walmart or whatever. It's something, like, your mom would probably pick up and read and be like, oh, that was cute. Like, I can see this. This is very, like, Millennial or Gen X type of book.
Definitely.
Maybe that's a hot take.
I think it's definitely Millennial. Like, that's, like... Well, so this was published in 2021, so it's like right after COVID, kind of COVID still going on, and I wonder if that did have some influences on Emily Henry deciding to make this such a travel-focused book as well, because we obviously know during all of 2020, most places were shut down and travel was pretty restricted. One thing I do appreciate about this, because obviously I think it does take place in like the 2020-ish era, but I like sometimes whenever books don't mention COVID, but it also is an interesting choice to not have any focus on COVID while this being such published, obviously still in the middle of COVID. We're still in the middle of the pandemic, whether or not people want to believe it or not. Like, people are still getting diagnosed, and now there's some new mystery flu disease people are getting diagnosed with right now. So obviously we're still having some type of health crisis, especially in the United States. But it is I just think that is something that I feel like would be touched on more if it wasn't just a romance novel. Because I know them girlies like to tussle about this being, like, Emily Henry being a romance author, quote unquote.
Yes, that's like the only controversy that seems to be surrounding Emily Henry. It's not even like a proper controversy. It's just a matter of readers' interpretations. Like, is it women's fiction? Is it like literary fiction in that way? Or is it romance? And
the answer is
it's romance. It's romance. I don't know what to tell you. And
maybe
I feel like that's maybe why the rating the way it is. Like, I don't know if you saw the star demographic. I thought this was going to be a lot higher rated, but
I mean, there's a lot of people that read it.
There is a lot of people that read it. It has a 3.84-star average on Goodreads with 1.6 million ratings and 159,000 written reviews, which I know I can't base everything off of Goodreads, but it is like the most used book reviewing platform that there is. So I do think we get a little bit more of an idea on like what the general public thinks, because outside of book reviews that were like published in, I don't know, like New York Times or some like those big like news publications, like Goodreads is like the only thing that's come out where people can like publish their review. So I do think you get a better idea on what people think if you go onto Goodreads. Unfortunately, it's positive, but
Yeah.
I did not see, like, I get why it became a movie, but at the same time I'm kind of confused because I don't feel like there's anything substantially different about this as compared to so many other rom-coms that I've seen this far.
I think, well, because I think a lot of people are wanting to go back to like that early 2000s. Like, it's kind of almost like nostalgia bait without it being nostalgia bait, because I know I see a lot of film Twitter stuff, because Mariah knows I go to the movies like pretty much once a week. I'm watching a movie almost every week. So I do get a lot of like film Twitter stuff, and Eternity came out late last year, and that was like a romantic comedy. It actually did have a unique premise. I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I did like it. But I think with that coming out, and it did relatively well for a romantic comedy, and I think people are trying to get back to that form, because if you think about it, within the last like 5 years, how many romantic comedies really have been released? They're not like
I can
in the
see
mainstream anymore, and so I think they're trying to go back to form with that. And I think a book adaptation is probably like the like low risk high reward, because millions of people have already bought this book, you know, like it's a New York Times bestseller. It's got 1.6 million ratings just on Goodreads. I imagine it's, so people already know and like the story, whether or not it's Emily Henry's highest rated book. It is still a very popular novel, and especially because it's going to be a direct to streaming movie, I don't think they're losing, like there's no risk of really losing that much money on it, because it's something that's already in popular culture, versus them just doing like an original idea would be more of a risk. And I have seen people wishing for romantic comedies online.
I can see that. I definitely can see that, especially with we're having all of the movies that are coming out that it's like a sequel to, whether it's like Hocus Pocus, like these very
Or
cherished
live
millennial.
adaptations.
Yes, the live adaptations. They're like trying to get the millennial. They're trying to get people back in the theater. So I can like totally see why
Which there was an
adapting this
increase
would make it.
in, there was an increase in last, like in 2025. More people did go to the theater, or like they had higher sales in movies in 2025 than they have in the last couple of years, which I'm imagining it's been since COVID, because since COVID, direct to streaming was normalized in a way because you couldn't go to the theater, and now the theater is kind of picking up steam again, which I'm excited. I love going to the movies. That's one of my favorite things to do. I'm a big moviegoer. But this isn't even going to be in the theaters, so it's kind of an L on their part. Not that I think Emily Henry had any control over that, but
Which, if you're curious about our thoughts on the movie, I think we're going to watch it when it comes out, and then we'll probably end up posting a short review of it on here. Just to like, I don't know, why not? Just review it and just post it. And if you want it, it'll be just like a little extra thing that we'll be posting, because we're trying to post once a week. Anyways, we can get into our reviews, our spoiler-free reviews. Kristen already read this, what, 4 years ago?
I read it in 2022. So yeah, I don't know exactly when. I just know it's 2022. So yes, this was a reread for me, which I needed to do the reread genuinely, because I picked this up reading this and I was like, I do not remember a single thing about this. And I read it in 2022, and that was kind of whenever I mean, like, I've always been a reader. Like, I don't think there's ever been a year where I didn't read a book, but that I was reading less than what I read now. And I think that was probably like the first year that I was like reading actual adult books too, because I feel like I was reading YA books forever, because that's like my bread and butter. So I was like still reading like Percy Jackson and stuff then, but then I also like because like Book Talk kind of ended up was on my feed more then. And so that's whenever I was starting to read. I read a lot of contemporary romances in 2022. Like I was reading like the Allie Hazelwood, Christina Lauren, and all that stuff. Emily Henry, I read a couple of hers. And so this was a reread, and I think it's cute. I'm glad I reread it before watching the movie, because it did not commit itself to long-term memory. I couldn't tell you the characters' names, what any of the plot points were before rereading it. Like I genuinely had no memory of this book. So I don't even know why that was either. Like I didn't hate it then. I gave it 4 stars. I think I gave it 4.2 stars, 2.5 stars then. But then upon a reread, I ended up giving it like 4 stars. But I agree with like the Goodreads rating, where I'd say it's probably like a 3.84 star.
I am not a big, obviously, I already talked about this. I'm not a big contemporary romance reader, but I know Emily Henry is just so beloved by all. And the way people talk about it online, I just was expecting a lot more. When I read Beach Read, maybe we'll review it at some point if it gets a movie. Does it have a movie out?
Not
Is it
that
gonna?
I know
Probably.
of. It probably
bet
will.
it'll get
I
one.
know she's got. I want to say Book Lovers is the next adaptation of hers that people are doing, that I think I saw. But I think, because I'm pretty sure one of her other novels is getting like a TV show or something, maybe. I don't know. I'm pretty sure she's got a few of these in the work right now.
Okay. But so maybe at some point we'll do it. I wasn't the biggest fan of Beach Read. I thought it was fine. And then People We Meet on Vacation, it was cute, but again, it was just fine. Like I was just expecting a lot more. It's very sweet, it's very cute. I don't tend to gravitate towards friends to lovers tropes. It's just like not something, like it's fine. I did like there's like dual timelines, which I thought was really nice and lovely. The writing is nice. I did think that the dialogue is very like millennial. Like you could tell who
It's
this
so
is targeted.
chuggy.
It's so chuggy and millennial core, and at times I thought it was a little repetitive with the inside jokes that are shared between the characters. But it's just not for me. Ultimately, it's not for me. I'd recommend it to other people that like this type of thing, but it's not my book.
I think the thing about this book is that, like, I remember I was, like, during my reread now, there's some things I highlighted, and it felt like so, like, 2016 core. I thought this was published in 2016. The way, like, there's, like, one line, I think I highlighted it, where her winged eyeliner could slice through an aluminum can, and her emerald eyes could crush it afterwards. Like, that is so millennial core. Like, it's cute for what it is, and like I'm sure in like 2021 people were eating this up, but it's also like, being Gen Z personally, I feel like it's just like it just cringes me out because it's so silly. But I feel like I can look past it because I understand that like the target audience is, no offense, normies. If you're a normie that loves it, I thought it was cute, but it's normie core.
No,
And I don't
would
say
rather people pick up this as opposed to Colleen Hoover. If I'm going to be honest, like if you're getting back into reading, because it is very easy to read. But I just think that I'm at a point in my life where I've read so much stuff that I am trying to read things that are a little bit more complex. And this is just like, it's not that. It's just like, it's a nice little read, but it's not anything crazy. I am trying to challenge myself a little bit more. I actually had a dream that Kristen and I were reading East of Eden, and it was a banger, and we were just absolutely obsessed with it. I did. I had a dream about reading East of Eden by John Steinbeck, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy."
I just think whenever people discuss like popcorn reads, this is one of these, and I do understand, because you have to remember, like, the average American reads a book a year, if even, and I do think there are definitely more horrible things within literature that people could be reading, but I just personally, like, I know I see a couple people on Goodreads, like, the only thing they read is contemporary romance, and I don't think that could ever be me or Mariah. Like, I don't even think I could ever commit myself to just one genre. Like, I have a favorite genre, but even then, it's like, that will not ever be the only thing I read.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to get into the spoilers. We're about a quarter of the way in. I think it's time. to fully embrace it. So if you're wondering about reading this, I mean, if you like contemporary romance, like pick it up. I mean, you don't have anything to lose, and you could probably get it for really cheap because it is like mass published. I got mine at the used bookstore for like a couple bucks. So you can find it, read it. I don't know, share it with your grandma. It's not super like smutty or anything, so it's not
No.
like
Which I
it's fine.
appreciate. I prefer that in my romance. I don't like whenever there's like nonstop smut in like every chapter. And I wouldn't necessarily say this as a slow burn because they are kissing before the 300-page mark. But it is a little bit longer than I would say your typical romance. But even though you know where it's going the whole time, because again, with romance, that's like the thing of the genre is that you know they will end up together. So that's what disappoints me. Well, that's what I was going to say. That's why I don't like the romance genre, because I like a little bit more mystery and intrigue in what I read. And reading a romance, I feel like you don't get that because you're not getting, because you know they're going to end up together, you know? The main characters end up together. That's like the definition of a book being a romance, right?
That's why a why choose is just like you gotta mix it up. It's like
That's not
are
even
they
mixing
are
it
they
up, though.
all gonna get together?
That's Mariah.
Just gotta mix it up. I will say this did surprise me because out the gate, very early on, we get to meet some side characters, and there's this one named Rachel, and she makes this line that really surprised me, where they're talking about like their jobs and how our main character Poppy is just like not happy with her job, her dream job. All she wants to do is travel around the world and take pictures and post it because she started that with like her blog on social media and grew that way. But Rachel says contentment is a lie invented by capitalism. And when I read that, it was like the sound effect, like
Wow.
the big boom, was like, okay, I don't know where this is going. I thought that was a really interesting thing to include because a lot of millennials have been kind of like conditioned. I know some of the older Gen Z, but millennials specifically were told like, okay, you need to go to college and then you need to get a good job, right? Don't do something that you like, get something that's going to pay and then like work your way up the corporate ladder and like you'll be happy, like you'll make it, get a house and all that. And Rachel, who's like this art major, like I can't remember what her job is, but
She's
she
an
posts on social
influencer as
media.
well.
Yeah. But she's just like, oh, contentment is a lie, which it is. It is in a sense because it's like meritocracy. Like you're supposed to work really hard
Mm-hmm.
to like get these things, and then once you have them, like you'll be happy. And that's also like consumerism in like an element. Like you need these things to be happy in your life. And I thought that was a really nice little element to be added into the story. And I didn't know if you picked up on that as a theme throughout this book as well.
I know I did highlight that quote, I thought. I don't know whenever it happened. But I mean, like, I do think that it is really interesting because, like, the way that it's mentioned in this book, too, is such a, like, throwaway line that I feel like if you're not someone who, like, studies capitalism for fun or anything like that, I can easily just see it's, like, a line that you just, like, read or whatever. But I do appreciate how it is mentioned as well, like this idea and stuff is even just like slightly introduced to people that are not studying capitalism and stuff, because I think that's one thing why like millennials and stuff are genuinely like generally more left leaning than like Gen X and like further on up and stuff like that, which of course I know every Gen X person and like boomer are like, oh, you'll get more right as you get older. But I think because of the way that capitalism is structured and how the way society is on a never ending slide that is constantly going downhill, I think a lot of millennials, especially in New York too, no, like not that we're Mom Donnie bros or anything like that, but you can see a lot of people are not in favor of capitalism anymore. It's unpopular with the younger generations, which not that Emily Henry has ever said her political ideology or anything like that, but I do appreciate that this is something that I think being more aware and in the conscious mind, I mean, that's all our goal is too, and spreading class consciousness is making people realize that capitalism is not the end all be all or the fix that society is going to have or need, right?
Yeah, I do think like throughout this book as a whole, you're kind of seeing like these two characters and like what they're doing and how they're going through life. And you see Alex, who's pretty, he's like a calm, he like knows he's going to do X, Y, and Z things. He likes a very controlled environment. He's going to go to school, he's going to get this degree, he's going to go do this job. And then you have Poppy, who's kind of just like drop of a hat, I'm going to do these things. And
Impulsive,
I think you see as they're growing and moving through the different timelines and like their current vacation that they're on, that it kind of wraps back around to like this theme of like contentment and like what to be expected of life. And I think that's like where people are getting like the woman's fiction element, is because it is just Poppy's point of view, and you're seeing like this like woman going through life doing what she's kind of wants to do, but also realizing it's just not panning out. Like she got like the job, she's in New York, she's in a nice apartment, she's traveling, she's doing all of the things, and it's still like she's missing the special sauce. And that's, in this case, is like her love,
a boyfriend,
like except
which it should be communism.
I do take contention with the way that like the romance is like the solution to this problem. I do think it's a little, but obviously there's other things that happen, but I do think that's like the center focus of this, is like her truest self going to therapy and realizing that like she really does actually like love her best friend. You should be with somebody in your life that you love, that is your best friend, that you can do everything with. But that kind of is one of like the big themes at the end.
Feel like maybe the theme rather could have been more of like community rather than just like one specific person being right for you. But that's the thing, is that that's what makes this a romance novel, is that it is that one specific person, versus if it was women fiction, I think like the idea of her like looking for a community like within New York or whatever, then it probably would have been a more like critique on society and discussion on society. But I think like Emily Henry's ultimate goal was to tell a love story between these two characters, right? And that's one thing too, like when people love to debate like the women's fiction, like we're gonna keep alluding back to that, because like that's like the biggest thing, especially like controversy and discussion on Book Talk about Emily Henry, is that she's like, oh, she's really a women's fiction author. It's like, no, she knows how to write a well-rounded character and characters that actually have realistic goals and ideas, because she obviously looks at real life and is able to use that. And I think that's what makes her work so good, but then also makes it so that people that don't only enjoy like other genres are able to enjoy Emily Henry.
Yeah, I think she could very easily, if she had done like a dual point of view and kind of reeled it back on the romance, she could very easily be like
Sally
a
Rooney.
lighter version of Sally Rooney, which I thought was really interesting. This one compared to like Beach Read, because Beach Read, it's very much like it's a romance, but like this one I can see it having more of that element, but I was wanting more of that commentary that just wasn't present. We did get with the whole like Alex's father, like the Christian parents and queer kids, and Emily Henry does a good job of including a lot of like queer characters in her books from what I've read so far, which I really liked. But then I don't know, like there's some other like elements where they were talking about like individualism, and which I think is kind of like a theme with Poppy, is she has like this very, very like individualist mindset where she's just trying to escape and be seen based on like her trauma and her past and whatnot. It's interesting. It is very interesting for a romance novel. I can't knock it for that. Did you notice the line about like individualism where she's talking about like her brothers?
I thought I might have highlighted it. Let me see the exact quote.
It's pretty early. Oh. I did dog ear all of my quotes in here. So if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I know it's terrible.
Maybe not.
In mine, it's around page 82, but she was kind of just talking about like her growing up and like...
I did highlight that. There's nothing so off-putting to put some people as someone who seems not to care whether anyone else approves of them. Maybe it's resentment. I have been for the greater good to follow the rules, so why haven't you? You should care. Because she's discussing that within the context of her being bullied throughout high school, and she like attributes the reason why she was bullied is because she didn't care what people think, because she does discuss like throughout how she has a very individualistic style. Like she dresses like it's the 70s or the 80s. And then like there's like those themes of that, which I don't know. I think I think Emily Henry did that because, uh, especially like you have to look at who Emily Henry's audience is, which majority is going to be white women, right? And I think a lot of people understand that, like, I mean, I think bullying is a very like normalized thing within society. Like, I think most people like felt they were experienced bullying at some point, whether they were the bully or the bullied in society, because it was very normalized, especially being in high school and middle school. I think that's such like a normal thing that was going on. Especially, I imagine it's worse with social media now. I mean, social media was still around whenever I was in school, but it's definitely more extreme now. And so I think the idea is that, like, at this age where, because with Emily Henry, the age of her characters are usually like late 20s, early 30s ish area, right? And I think you have this idea where, like, in mostly popular culture and other forms of media, these people are shown to have life figured out. Everything is like set sail. You're so like the way that millennials, especially, and Gen Z now, and then even Gen Alpha to a point, it's that like you get to that, you hit 21 or whatever, and you're supposed to have your entire life figured out. I mean, we force children to go to college at 18 and decide what they want to do for their career. And I think with this, I think what Emily Henry tries to say is that, like, everyone's going to appear that they have their life figured out to you, but you know individually to yourself that maybe you don't have life figured out. And I think people feel seen within that because nobody is really, like, people are realizing that maybe not everything, like, people are just all on this train of existence together, moving forward, trying to figure out what stop to get off at, you know? Nobody knows anything. Even people like to pretend that they do. And I think that's like what she's trying to put across with Poppy's character, is that, like, you're not stupid or evil or whatever have you for not knowing what you want your life to be by the age of 30.
Yeah, and you can kind of see with her discussions with Alex that he's also kind of confused on what's going on with his grandma Betty passing, and he inherits her house. Poppy does suggest something that I think is very trending within the millennial generation, and that is becoming a landlord or owning an Airbnb, because she suggests if to Alex, saying like, oh, if it's like too much work, like you could just rent out the house, like just become a landlord. And it was another one of those like weird throwaway lines that I know, which I'm glad he like says no, like, but it's an odd thing because millennials are at such a disadvantage because of the amount of student loan debt and them just trying to like get up in life. This kind of like falls back into like our critiques of capitalism, that they are leaning back on this like passive, quote unquote, passive income style where you have this house. Oh, I have an extra house. I'll just rent it out and I'll have this extra money to supplement myself, without acknowledging that, like, when you do that, you become part of the oppressing class. Like, you're no longer part of the working class because you're exploiting like an essential thing that people need. Like, people need shelters. You're creating an artificial housing scarcity. And I thought that was such an odd thing. And I guess it does play back into Poppy's character with like that individualism mindset that is brought on by a capitalist society when you're just so deeply entrenched and socialized to believe these things. I don't know that she ever grows out of that, though. And I thought that was such an odd, there's so many like weird little throwaway lines in this that kind of like sent me to stop and sit. And I don't know if other people picked up on it because everyone just rates it as like 5-star, love it, it's so cute. I'm like, some of this was weird.
To me, that's, I think, the problem with liberalism, though. You know, like, these people obviously don't have consistent like thought processes and stuff. Not that, like, I think like you could see Poppy's specific like political ideology and what she believes in like all throughout, like you get a like somewhat, but to me I feel like she's a very like, she lives in New York City, like she's going to be liberal in that section. And I think that's one thing too, because most people are not, you know, reading about this stuff, where they're going to have a very liberal worldview. And so to liberals, being a landlord is just like another career choice, right? Like, they don't see anything wrong with being a landlord or anything like that. And I think that's where it comes from, which I don't know if Emily Henry has changed like or like what she's written about now, because I know the biggest like thing like with her women's fiction thing is with her latest book, Great Big Beautiful Life, too. So maybe we'll have to read that at some point to see if that's really like maybe that's got maybe more of even the commentary we're looking for on like society. Because I'd be interested to see, because she's not very online, is she? I know she's just like Midwest.
I didn't really see anything about her online. I did some very light research on her, but she's very quiet about her politics. So everything I'm extracting is like what's been presented in these books. So like what was in Beach Read, what was in this book. And this one is just piqued my interest for many of these like throwaway lines, like I said, because there's another line later on where she's talking about Lita, who is somebody that they met on vacation like 10 8 it's like one of their first vacations. They went to Vancouver Island in Canada or whatever, and they meet this person at like this kind of like house that's like a commie sort of like people come and they live there, like one of those punk crash pad type houses. They meet Lita, and then eventually they're like, oh, Buck's like, oh, hit her up because she's like a raft guide, and she's talking about how she's having so much fun doing something. She's like, I haven't done this since I did ayahuasca. I believe that's how you say it. And I thought that was a really interesting thing, because there is a big ethical debate on cultural appropriation and colonialism when it comes to that, because it is considered medicinal for South American cultures. A lot of indigenous people use this, and there is a lot of like white hippie type people, especially like living in the Pacific Northwest. Like we hear like the white sage, we have like Wicca, there's a lot of people. So like I'm very like locked in. I hear a lot about this, and I thought that was another interesting line to throw in there. And I did find, if you're curious, there's a 4-hour podcast on Rev Left that I'm going to listen to that is about this subject, that will be linked, because I find it really interesting the way that like these like white liberal kind of like, oh my god, what was like the name, the girl that was like a hippie that was posting on TikTok, do you know who I'm talking about?
With
She's
the
like
dreads?
Earth's mother. Yes, like that
I don't
type.
know what she is, yeah, but I know what you're talking. I know the vibe.
It's like, you know, that's the vibe that we're going for. And I do find it interesting because that type of like person and like personality, they're always associated with like communism and like the communes, but
they're
end up
not
being very reactionary.
racist.
Yeah.
Usually they're racist. Like I've met because like I don't think that culture is super big here where I live. Like I think it's definitely more of a West Coast thing. But there are a few people that I have met here, and they'll always just say like the most like sus stuff, where it's like, you actually don't have any understanding about anything, do you? You're just kind of stupid. But then you want like the benefits of communism, but then also you don't understand anything about anything. Those people piss me off. Like
the whole if we could find a book to talk about the politics of them, and I could like bring in some real vlog clips of me going out into like my world,
Mariah's harassing people.
I go into some of the. I live in Southern Oregon, right? Like I live in the biggest city in Southern Oregon, and there is so many of this type of people. Like there's different like little places you can go, like these camps. I don't know. I thought that was such a weird line though. And this was somebody that's like.
Almost like, because like there's that couple too that is in this book that they're not newlyweds, but Alex and Poppy tell this couple, I don't remember their names, and I don't think they remember their names. That's like the whole thing.
No, I don't think they got their names, did they?
I think they did at the beginning, like whenever they were in the Uber, they shared Uber with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I know they kind of get that vibe too, because they're like, oh, like let's go to Joshua Tree, sort of like, it's like those people, you know? No offense if you're one of those people, but
I have my criticisms, and this is freedom of speech. This is our podcast, and I won't be silenced, and I'm gonna talk. I'm sorry. I don't know. It's like, very strange.
I just think, especially if you're like a white person who has dreads, low key, you're racist. Like, am I wrong?
No. I mean, leave in the comments what you believe on that. But you didn't think we were going to talk about this in this Emily and Henry novel. But these are the things I think about when I'm reading this, because I'm critically engaging with the content. This is how the literacy functions. I'm sorry, this is not just a tangent. This is not just autism. But like, why is Poppy so like lovey-dovey cozy with her boss too. Like, it's weird. They have like a weird kind of
I
relationship where
think
they're kind of like, we're cool. We're like one of those like the Buzzfeed offices where like you can go cycling
well,
downstairs and
that's like
get
the
your food, but
vibe.
we're exploiting you. Like, that's the
I
whole thing with the R&R. It's like Buzzfeed.
Yes, which I think it's so millennial core too. Like that's the thing. Like I think a lot of this stuff boils down to like what millennials find entertaining and what they're dreaming of, especially I think that's one thing like this could not be written like 10 years from now whenever like Gen Z becomes like the new like main author age, you know? Like this is like I'm really interested because I do like millennials are obviously affected by capitalism, but I feel like they were still trying to work the system like as like an age group to try to survive capitalism, where I feel like the younger generation is like, let's just get rid of it. You
Yeah, a
know,
lot
and
of
I
the
think
younger generation, I think on average, are like Gen Z have a higher home ownership rate because a lot of like Gen Z people were like, I'm not going to get a 4-year degree. I'm not going to do that. Ended up working in
mm,
trades instead and just end up making more money because they're doing like practical things, which I think is brilliant. I think you absolutely should do that because a lot of like, you don't need a business degree.
nope.
You don't need it. Marketing, graphic design, I don't think you need it.
I don't think
Um,
you need a degree for a lot of degrees that you think, where it's just more like the skill is what is prioritized, which is why trade school is more popular, like
Yeah,
for a
it's
younger
like trade school,
generation.
or you need like a graduate or like professional level degree. Like bachelors are kind of phasing out. This is something I've learned from like my colleagues, i.e., all my mutuals on TikTok that have like masters and PhDs, or just like the people like in my profession. Like if you're in healthcare, you don't usually need a BSN, like which is like a
Mm-hmm.
bachelor's of science in nursing. You can have an RN, and you guys end up doing the same job. It's only if you want to get like your nurse practitioner later that you would need to do that. And even then, you can kind of just like keep going to school in like 2-year increments to get. There's a lot of weird stuff that like you don't know about because you're just like socialized to believe. Okay, you go to high school, then you go
And
to
then you go to your
college, and when you're
university 4
18 years old,
years.
you need to pick your major, which
Yep.
is fucking crazy. And
Well, because
then you go and
that's one
work.
thing we didn't even talk about either, because Poppy is a college dropout as well, which
Same
is
girl,
another. Me
same.
too, just like me for real. Um, but I think that like that's one thing too that I think she is ended up getting a very privileged position, right? Even though with being a college dropout, and I think that's one thing. I think that's interesting that specifically Emily Henry chose that for her main character to be a college dropout, because I think it does relate again to like this millennial idea where everyone was shoved into like, oh, you have to go to college for 4 years, but then people are realizing that like one, it was either a waste of money, or two, it's not something that was really needed depending on what you want to do specifically. Like obviously some jobs do require degrees, like but like I mean what Poppy does, no offense, I don't really think you need a bachelor's degree to go travel and write an article about it.
No, and like some of the research she does for her stuff to figure out like where's the next place, because right, she's writing these articles and going on these vacations to test like where like rich people would go
Yes.
to rest
Because
and relax.
that's what R&R is. It's and I think that you do get that growth within that, because by the end of the book, like that's one thing is that like she got her dream of traveling all the time because she wanted, but then she realized that she doesn't want to like she doesn't care about travel because she wants like the nicest and cushiest place to stay. She cares about travel because of the connection with other people that are on vacation. Like I do like that theme throughout where it's like whenever you're on vacation, like that's the happiest most people are. And especially like with American culture and stuff, I think the way that Americans like one, we don't travel a lot. Like most Americans on average don't travel. One, if they're even traveling outside of the country, which is one, not very often. And two, I think like America is so ingrained in like work culture and stuff like that that obviously there's like the archetype of like Karens and things like that, but I do think this is an interesting discussion about like how joyful people can be whenever they're not focusing on their job. You know, like I do think that's relevant to this.
Yeah, because a lot of people are just so job centered. Like their whole
Yes.
personality is their job. They go out afterwards like, "Oh, what do you do for work?" Like that's like your first
Yes.
thing when you ask somebody, like, "What do you do? What do you labor? Like, what's your choice?" And could allegedly, right? Our thoughts is like your contribution to society, but in reality, it's like what cog in the machine of the capitalist exploitation system are you operating in? Is what you're asking, and like, do you like it? And it's the very odd thing to ask, like people if they like it. And allegedly Poppy has like her dream job, so she should be in love. And the same
But
thing
then
with
she
like
still doesn't
Alex.
like it.
Like Alex should be, which I think he likes he likes reading, he likes teaching.
Yeah.
Which
I
teaching
mean,
is teachers are you guys are
we
the
need them.
backbones of society. We need teachers, especially like to teach literacy. Oh my god, please. Because
Yeah, and that's what he's
I
doing.
didn't look at any of the reviews for this book. I'm kind of scared to see like what people are saying with when I search like keywords. That's my favorite thing to do on the Goodreads reviews, to search like keywords, like what do people say. I'm like communism, socialism, and in this one I'm going to look up Siberia to see if anyone else acknowledged the little like offhanded throwaway quote, which I don't think this is going to be a proper debate, but I do think that we're going to have different perspectives, because Poppy towards the end is like looking at different vacation spots for her job, and she's kind of just like not connected, right? It's after her vacation, like her actual vacation that she took, and she's like looking at Siberia, and she said turns out Siberia is actually sort of beautiful, perfect for self-imposed exile if one has a need, if such a wait if one should have, what the fuck? Why can't I read?
I don't think you wrote that down right, to be honest.
I don't think she's talking about like if you need for self exile, like Siberia is a beautiful place. And I thought that was an interesting line, because
Which, go ahead.
you can get into
Go ahead.
your thoughts on it. No,
Go
because I
ahead.
think like
No, go ahead.
given people's understanding of different places that happened based on like Red Scare propaganda and McCarthyism and the way that the education system, I think that people's automatic thought process because of that and all of the anti-communist propaganda is like Siberia, gulags, USSR, communism bad. So I think that's like people's first things, because I very much understand that it didn't happen
I don't agree with that.
under that. But like the majority of people, when you hear about exile in Siberia, they're going to think about like the gulags.
I don't know if that's true though. Well, because like that's the thing, is that I think with Russia, the Tsar of Russia was exiling people to Siberia before the USSR was even a full concept. Lenin himself was exiled to Siberia, and I don't think Emily Henry meant it in a malicious way. I think it was just like people know, like people understand exile. I mean, they don't know. I don't think people understand gulags. They understand like being sent away. Because I mean, like who else? Famous people were exiled, not necessarily to Siberia, but just exile in general for like being political prisoners. With like, we have like Napoleon was exiled, not to Siberia. I don't remember where he was exiled, and then like Trotsky. Dostoevsky himself was supposed to be killed, and then the Tsar ended up exiling him to Siberia. So I don't think it's necessarily being like malicious and like, oh, because even then with like Poppy going to Siberia, I don't think she's doing it to be like, I'm this evil person that needs to be taken out back and taken care of, sort of thing. I think she's just doing it where she's looking at a different perspective and a different place to be, and she wants to be as far away from Alex as possible, because she does view herself in a negative light because of how she's kind of been stringing Alex along. But I just think, in my opinion, I think they're both on equal footing with their problems and how they're treating other people because of their unresolved feelings within each other, And I think the only reason why we're getting this like line is because we only get Poppy's perspective.
Yeah, but she has like a carceral, like she is like punitively like, I need to go punish
but she's
myself.
Not doing
and
it,
I think when
not
people
gulag.
But the thing is, right, is like when people talk about like the USSR and like the ills that happened with the USSR, what is like the number one event that people talk about? Like the first thing that they think about?
I feel like it's Holodomor.
Do you know who was sent into exile during Holodomor? The kulaks.
Well,
So like
yes,
that's like the whole
but
thing. I was like, so I think it's my whole I think it's an anti-communist line. I'm gonna settle. I'm locking in my answer. I think
I don't
because
think
of
so.
like
I think it's just a
Stalin and
general
his, which I don't think there's
line.
anything wrong. I mean, I think the Black Book of Communism has done worse for society than communism itself. But
Well,
that's
yes.
just my 2 cents. So like I just think that was a really odd line to throw in. Obviously, I don't think it detrimental to the book, but it does hinder my enjoyment because ultimately it's just showing me. I think Emily Henry is just like a garden variety liberal writing a romance novel, and because people don't have robust literacy, people think this is significantly more provocative and I don't know, life changing and altering than it actually is. When it's just a romance novel that's written well, and
And
I
I
think
feel
people
like
should challenge themselves and read actual like literary fiction, because this has potential. And I think you should make that segue at some point, but you shouldn't just limit yourself to reading stuff like this and just assume like, I don't know, this is as good as it's get. And you should reflect on like why you think this is the creme de la creme of novels, because people
I
ride or
wonder.
die for Emily Henry, and it's really confusing to me.
I think. I think it's borderlines on like escapism, where a lot of people are reading fantasy for specifically escapism because like, oh, you're not in the United States or you're not in whatever place that is suffering, and I think this romance novel kind of has that element of escapism as well, where it's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know what you're gonna get. It's gonna be enjoyable. It's gonna satiate you. Versus if you do branch out to different genres, which besides just like I do think fantasy can have good elements of critique of society and stuff. Certain fantasy specifically, or certain science fictions, or even literary fiction and stuff. Those are more relevant to critique. But the thing is that whenever you're opening yourself up to reading those, you're opening to yourself up to feeling more complex emotions than what you would get reading a romance novel. Because, like, one of the main goals of reading is to build empathy, right? That's like one of the main things why everyone talks about like reading is such an important skill to have, and reading fiction specifically, I do mean. Um, and I think that's one thing that I think a lot of people are scared to go out of their comfort zone to experience something that may make them look at the world differently if they're already so content with themselves and the society they're in. Like, because you have
I
to look at, like, well, I
I would
was
say
just
I
saying,
would
like, if
love
you,
to see people like make the segue, because I think if you like Emily Henry, you could read Sally Rooney, and then if you could read Sally Rooney, you could read like any other of like the more like the pop literary fiction authors that are out, like stuff that's been written in the last like 5 to 10 years. I think you can make that segue and like build up your literacy and really challenge yourself. And I would love to see people do that because I think that would be a good segue. Because if I feel like if you could read Sally Rooney, you could read like I don't know, anything. Like you could read Jacqueline Hartman's I've Never Known Men. It's not a complex novel and it was written in like the 90s. Like you could just like keep building and challenging yourself. And I feel like people are kind of at a point where they don't want to. Like I see people who are like,
no.
"Oh, I
Well,
read all
that's,
these books," and they're not reading challenging books. And it's like that's great that you're reading more, but at some point you really ought to be challenging yourself so that you can grow as a reader and educate yourself in
again,
certain ways.
I think that's why people are reading this is for escapism rather than it is to actually look at society different or look at themselves differently or the people around them differently.
Yeah, I think it's because like the characters are very relatable, they're very normal, they're ordinary. I don't think they're like, oh, drop dead gorgeous, babe, bombshell. Like it's just, there's just like normal people that anybody can like self-insert themselves or relationship dynamic. There's got to be like a Emily Henry book for like any sort of relationship dynamic. That's like in my head, I think why because people are going to find one that kind of like fits their real life and they're going to really cling to it because it's like, oh, an interpretation of their love life, which is nice. It's lovely. I'm not knocking that. And I also want to say we both enjoyed this book, obviously.
Yes.
Like our ratings of it are like good, but I do have my criticisms of it, and I never see anyone critically talk about any of these romance novels, and I think we should. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this podcast. We're really challenging status
But that's the
quo of book
problem
talk.
is with us too, is that we don't necessarily enjoy, like, we enjoyed this book, but it's also like I'd rather be reading like Dungeon Crawler Carl than read this, you know? Like, no offense to the Emily Henry girlies. Like, I am interested in reading her other novels too, because I am interested in the discussions that surround them, and I do think like they're cute and everything, but it's just like, whenever I'm reading something, I like something a little bit faster paced. Not that this is necessarily slow paced in any way, but I want something a little bit more, I don't know, crazy, and something that really is trying to say something about society, not just like so individual, which that is again a theme that we do talk about, like with Poppy. She does have her individuality complex or whatever it is, where I feel like maybe as she learned about, I don't know, community. I mean, like, it's New York City, you know, that she lives in and that we're in for a good chunk of the time. Like, I feel like that is a great place for you to be learning about community, and maybe then she wouldn't feel the way she does.
But in reality, I think Poppy was just kind of like sitting in her apartment and filming her vlog on like why she left R&R. And I don't know, like she.
I mean, I love the Millennial Buzzfeed. Like, I still watch Safia, y'all. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Safia and Igard. That's one of my favorite millennials. But
did you watch Threadbanger?
No, I watched what's the girl one? They had like I don't remember what they called it. There's like all the girls. Safia was in it. I watched that one. I mean, I've talked about BuzzFeed Unsolved on this podcast too.
Yes, I think you did the last one.
Yeah, I love BuzzFeed Unsolved. I think that's definitely a trait. The Try Guys. I was a big Try Guys girly. You know, and that's, I think funny. Maybe if I did read this one ever, like, that's what I think. I think if this is published in like 2016, it probably would have been better, because that's like when that realm of everything was super popular, versus now, like, especially 2021. I'm really interested to see how the movie is going to adapt this, because I am worried. Like, obviously they picked age appropriate actors, like there's like late 20s, early 30s actors to play these main characters, but because of the way this novel's written, they're also supposed to be freshly 18 at some points of this, and I'm really am interested to see how they do that in the movie. I don't know if you have any predictions about the movie or anything.
I don't know. I hope it's just good. I just hope it's an enjoyable watch that I can share with people, because I think this is like a mom movie. I think I could like recommend this to my mom and she would watch it, or like my mother-in-law and she would watch it.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm really interested, because I feel like they do have to modernize it a bit. Even though the novel's only 5 years old, I think there's still, like, it's just crazy how fast things age. Especially, it's like milk. Everything is aging like milk now, you know? And I think that might be a fault of like late stage capitalism too.
Yeah, I think people are trying to write too like trendy, and there's too many kind of like acknowledgments to like jokes or whatever that are just like terminally online, or like something that you would know. And I don't like that in literature, and I think that maybe that's why I'm so afraid to read like newer books, because I don't like that.
I think it's like a replacement for humor is like relatability, because you're like supposed to be like, oh, that's just like me for real, ha ha ha, rather than it just being like, oh, that's relatable, you know? Like, I'm scared. Like, we don't read a lot of like contemporary novels, like really like new contemporary novels, unless it's like an author that we're interested in, which I'd be worried about. Like, the romance novels that are coming out this year, like, are they gonna have like TikTok sounds as like quotes within it? That's gotta be happening, right?
I would not be surprised if that wasn't, because there used to be, for a while, there was in the different romance books, in like, I guess like when they were doing the retellings, there would be like the playlists, and it would be like really trendy songs. And I haven't seen that in a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if there was like references or like meme reaction things that started getting linked. But
that's one thing
I'm excited. I don't know, for our next read, because it's going to be a lot different than this. And I'm looking forward to it with our book club, which is A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck. And I think that's going to be a good existential like sci-fi type novel. It's very short, and I think it'll be interesting because I think it's newer to compare something like
I
that.
think
I
it
just
might
like
be the
seeing what.
same age as this book. I thought 2021, to
Yeah,
be honest.
I thought it was a lot older, and I think it's not. She's not that old, and I'm so curious to think or see like what people are saying about books that have been written in like the last 5. What is it? 2026. The last 5 or
Oh,
6
it's actually
years.
2012, so it is older.
Oh, oh my gosh, we're like 14 years old. Okay, that's not terrible.
It's still modern, but it's definitely like I'd say anything published like pre 2015. If it's over 10 years old, it's kind of it's old. You know?
Damn, what does that say about us?
I mean, yes.
Take me out back, like old Yeller.
Might as well.
Damn.
And then also, don't forget, we will have our book talk later this month. Well, our next book talk will be about our most anticipated reads of 2026. So you can kind of get a little bit of information on what our reading taste is outside of the podcast. Even though I'm pretty sure some of these we will end up reviewing on the podcast.
Yeah,
Well.
there's not a lot of. I mean, there's a couple big ones that we've been looking forward to, but there's not nearly. I feel like this year compared to last year that I've been looking forward to. So it's. I don't know. I might even narrow down my list a little bit because some I just have on there that I find interesting, and a lot of them I think are translated novels that are coming out.
I think my thing, which we can talk more again in the book talk episode, but I think for me, like, I don't know about any books coming out until like a month before it's about to come out. And then like all the ARC readers and stuff are talking about it and hyping it up. That's usually whenever I get like the novels I want to read. Because like I know like the Buffalo Hunter was not even on my radar at all until everybody on Book Talk started talking about it. So this is just like a very rudimentary look at what I want to read. But I guarantee whenever like people's ARC ratings come out for certain books, like I will find more that I'm excited to read throughout 2026.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for all of that. If you want to follow our official podcast, Instagram, TikTok, it's at Literary Liberation. We're on YouTube. Obviously, if you're watching this, you know we're on YouTube. We post on all podcasting platforms. And
subscribe, like the video. If that's
all of the things we're required to post because apparently it helps. And I don't know why. I don't know the science behind that because I don't know. I was never somebody that was like, I heard it. Like, oh, like and subscribe. And I was like, oh, yeah, I got to like and subscribe. I was just watch it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm just different. I'm built different.
That's the thing. Like, I feel like, which we could have our own conversation about. But I mean, like, I agree. But it's also like, everybody, I watch a lot of YouTube content. That's like one of the main forms of media I consume. And they all mention liking and subscribing. So I think it must make a difference if every single YouTuber I watch mentions it. You know?
Just know that I am embarrassed and mortified to even say those terms. But I do it to grow, just so I can share.
So we can spread
conversation.
Marxist-Leninism to the average person in society. So if you want more people to have a more robust understanding about socialism and communism and Marxist-Leninism, you would like and share this post. But I guess other than that, thanks for listening, and thank you, and good night.